I didn't know I had tomato sauce on my hands.
Finders keepers.
That's not tomato sauce.
Finders keepers.
Reminds me of something. Tom Manucci.
But, you know, I can only get these online. I'm buying about
Put it
20
together.
pack. Really? Yeah.
Were you ever a chamberlain?
Yeah, muted.
Yeah,
How is it?
Madam Mayor, we're live.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, August 8th, City Commission Budget Work Session to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pam Triolo,
Here.
Vice Mayor Scott Maxwell,
Here.
Commissioner Omari Hardy,
Here.
Commissioner Andy Amoroso,
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson.
Here.
If everyone would please rise for the pledge, led by Commissioner Hardy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to move right to our discussions. Item 3A, Budget Development Process Overview. Who shall be leading us in this discussion of the overview?
Madam Finance Director Marie Elder.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Mayor and Commissioners, we have a brief presentation for you. Just a couple of slides just to kind of set the stage for tonight's discussion. Okay. We're going to briefly discuss the budget development process overview. We're going to have the mayor and commission provide any direction to staff, and then we're going to discuss the next steps, which are the next steps in the budget adoption process. Very briefly, and you do have a copy of the presentation in front of you, and we have additional copies for the public. We have a current adjusted budget for fiscal year 2017 of approximately $194 million. The proposed adopted budget for fiscal year 2018 is $184 million approximately. That is a difference of $9,563,000 approximately. For fiscal year 2018, there's a visual representation of the overall budget. Next slide, please. In particular for the general fund, this is a comparison of the controllable costs versus the non-controllable costs. As you can see, between fiscal year 2015 and the proposed budget for fiscal year 2018, the controllable costs continue to increase. For fiscal year 2017 adjusted budget, we had a controllable cost for the general fund of 37% of that particular fund. For fiscal year 2018, that is increasing slightly in terms of the controllable to 38.72%. The next slide is a visual representation of the controllable versus the non-controllable. And then we have the calendar, which are the next step. Today is August 8th, so we have a budget workshop where the commission will provide direction on the budget and brief document that was provided. Our next workshop related to the budget is August 22nd. And then as you all know, in September, we have 2 public hearings to adopt the budget. And Mayor and Commission, that is the brief overview presentation, and we stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
If I could just add a little extra there, just if y'all will recall, and to the newer members of the commission, when we talk about in the general fund controllable versus non-controllable, there are certain obligations that you enter into, whether it's the law enforcement services agreement or the pensions that followed the Lake Worth Police Department. Anything that is committed, that technically we're obligated to fund each year, we've labeled in the past, well, since I've been here, as non-controllable. These are things you're already married to. So as we look at the general fund budget, we've been monitoring what you actually have control over from a policy standpoint that you can manipulate or work with. And some of those, there's limitations on that as well, but we always thought that was helpful data for you to see, and that's why we continue to provide you that. If you look at the way the trend is going, you can see that there's a little bit of a shift, but not significant, and we're kind of tracking. A lot of people think, I pay my property taxes and it goes into the general fund and it funds everything. The size and scope of our budget, and even in the general fund itself, property taxes makes up a small portion of that. I don't know at this point in time, and I'm trying to look on, forgive my glasses because I really am getting bad at reading, but our property tax collected for the city, what's our projected for this year? I'm sorry.
And in the meantime, city manager, can you explain what the difference is? I mean, the only one that sticks out in a huge way is the water fund, the change in the budget from 17 to 18.
That is showing the for fiscal year 2018, there's not as much capital. In fiscal year 2017, there was a budget amendment to add capital funds for fiscal years 2017. You will not see that same level of request for capital for fiscal year 2018.
We've been doing a very good job of investing, Brian and the team, into the water infrastructure.
That's what I thought. Okay, Vice Mayor?
Also, you'll notice on the capital projects line, a little bit of a dip up, almost $3 million, and so that gives us that deficit of $10 million. And also, it's my understanding that this proposed budget does not include any capital money for the roads.
Correct.
And I think that's important for everybody to understand why we dropped so much as far as our overall budget for the year is. And I have one more comment if I could.
Sure.
And I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Apparently I did. You said that our controllables, our percentage of controllable expenses is increasing, which is a good sign. In my mind, it's a very good sign.
As compared to the overall budget,
Right,
there was
that's
a
very
slight
good sign. I
increase.
think that's an indication of, increased property values and better job of conserving our resources or whatever. But as long as those controllable percentages go up, I think we're in a better place. Thank you.
Commissioner Hardy?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
I do have a question on another page, the full year 2018 budget review page, where it talks about controllable versus non-controllable costs and lists some of the non-controllable costs, and one of them is CRA required contribution. Can we talk about that and what governs it?
Well, in the areas of the city that's geographically within the CRA district, above the amount of money that was set at the original floor of that's the
The
money
tax
we collect, and
increment
it goes
finances.
straight to the CRA.
That's the TIF
so,
payment.
The TIF, or as tax increment financing, we call it the TIF.
so for some reason, because that was under the police services contract, it appeared to me that
Oh, I see what
Differently.
you're saying. Yeah, actually, it should be, there shouldn't be,
It shouldn't be indented.
It
My
shouldn't be,
apologies.
not- yeah.
okay, all right, thank you.
None of them should be indented. They're all separate.
they're all
line
separate
items.
issues.
Okay.
And again, that's something that's already committed to within the
Right.
CRA district. What was the latest number on the?
For fiscal year 2017, our ad valorem tax is 6.5 million.
In last year.
Fiscal year 2016 actual 6.1 approximately.
I'm sorry. Did we get some confirmation or an update from Dorothy Jacks as to just how the potential homestead exemption increase would affect us?
We have received some data that shows the valuations in increments, and that, I think that's something we had actually talked about. We haven't. I think I actually forwarded that to you, but we can go back and look at that and look at the percentages of property that are valued below 100,000 and the ones that are above. But I know that data did come in.
Commissioner did you have an answer to that question?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. I'm trying to get Dorothy here. She had gone on holiday and then it competed with a couple of our meetings. So we'll circle back around with the clerk's office to try to get her here. But she wants to be here to update us on and how that new $25,000 tax homestead exemption will affect us too. So we're trying to get her here.
Commissioner Robinson, do you have any questions?
No.
Just my final point in what I wanted to make when we talk about the property taxes collected for the general fund, which is where the general government services reside, including police, out of a $35 million budget, you can see it's not even so. Most people assume that somehow property taxes pay everything in local government, and it's just not something that happens, especially when you're talking about a budget, overall budget that's projected to be almost $190 million. So it's a big operation. Property taxes are very important, but it doesn't pay the nut by a long shot.
Any other questions? Okay. Anything else, City Manager?
No, Madam Mayor.
This is gonna be the world's shortest meeting, not to mankind. You got Vice Mayor,
What's that?
questions?
Don't have any questions.
Okay. The next steps,
The next step, as I noted earlier, we have an additional workshop August 22nd where we will wrap up the budget. We will review all the funds, particularly the ones that were modeled by Stantec, and we will provide some additional information to prepare for the public hearings in September.
okay. What I wanna ask is, has anyone have gone through the backup of the budget and have any questions relating to any in particular funds that we can send staff back with any notes? Did you have any? No, then this will be the world's shortest meeting known to mankind.
Motion to adjourn.
Vice Mayor?
I'm sorry, I thought part of this meeting was for each of us to maybe throw out some ideas of things we'd like to see included in the budget or whatever, I don't know. Wasn't that supposed to be step 2? The second item on our agenda?
That's what I asked, if anyone had
Yeah.
anything they wanted to add.
Yeah, this is your
That was
chance.
the question that I asked.
If you
Anyone
have
have
things
anything
you
to
want to
add,
comment
bring back
as a
to staff?
general direction to us that you're not seeing in the budget, or if you want some other information, or
This is the time.
this is your chance to.
Well,
Vice Mayor, did you want to start?
no, I
Mr. Amoroso?
Let's talk for a moment, because I know we talked about the penny sales tax, and the $500,000 line item came up with the
FEC?
FEC and the crossings. My question to staff today was, is this going to be an ongoing issue? Because we have 13 crossings. If you remember, when did we pay? We paid $200,000, like
2012.
2012. So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. How often is this going to come up? And how many more crossings? I mean, I know that staff got sideswiped with this. They don't really give us an update. But do we have any idea of how many other crossings need to be done? Because I remember having the conversation when we first got hit with the 200,000. Aren't they going to come through and do work for the fast train? Can't they do everything at the same time? And I guess it doesn't work like that.
Yes. Jamie Brown, Public Services Director. This is a lot closer now. Sorry.
Hello.
You're then striking. Like right on top of you. I'm used to being back further. I'm sorry. Yeah, in the past, what has happened
Can you move
is,
that closer a little bit?
every year, we request, the actual upcoming maintenance for the upcoming year prior to budget, because it'd be nice to actually be able to budget it when we're doing everything else. It never comes on time because they run on just the regular year, not an actual fiscal year. So that's why we got the letter last month showing that we were going to be about $500,000 this upcoming year, which we weren't budgeting for. We typically do $200,000 because it's about 2 crossings per year. give or take. Every now and then we'll have one particular year they run around $100,000. So we were budgeting 150, I believe, this year. And
To clarify, we were assuming because of all the upgrades they had made with the double tracking, we were going to get a year kind of maybe off.
yeah, we kind of fought that battle last year with the MPO and Brightline and that whole deal back then. Because
And in essence, it tripled this year.
our whole intention was, I thought since they were actually doing the double tracking, they were already out there. They were doing medians in some areas. They're doing existing, adding on to existing sidewalk, adding ped gates, all that other stuff that they actually take care of all that while they were there. They did not. So we have 4 different crossings, 17th, 13th, 12th, and 10th that they're going to be doing this upcoming year in 2018 for a total of $488,000.
They didn't give you intact meetings, they didn't prepare you for any of that?
No, what we brought up multiple times, it didn't really seem like other
Sorry, technical
municipalities wanted
advisory
to.
committee meetings from the MPO.
Yeah, we brought that up multiple times. It did not seem like a battle they were willing to fight. But I kind of thought it was a double dip because they're already there, and I'm not sure what more they're going to be doing this upcoming year. But
There, in all honesty, the way the rails agreement is with our leases, if you want to call it that, to use both aerial, subterranean, and at-grade crossings across their rights-of-way, they hold the upper hand. And as a private business, why wouldn't they make us pay for things? But we would at least like some planning, or to spread it out over time, or to add it into the projects that were being done. And they just there's no lever to make them do it.
Follow-up for me, what I thought was that when they were coming through with Brightline, that was a conversation that they were going to step up, and they met individually with all of the cities with stops, and they said they were going to discuss making those upgrades.
Well, that if I recall, the conversation was mainly around the crossings and trying to make it horn-free, which sometimes we question whether that's happening or not. But
That's not happening.
yeah,
yeah, that was all based around the actual
Those
quiet
upgrades,
zone,
quiet
and
zones.
not
Right.
the actual annual maintenance of the crossing itself. So in order to make it quiet zone friendly, that's why in some areas like in West Palm, if you have the right of way, they're actually adding a center median, adding sidewalk in areas where they could, adding pedestrian gates where they're missing, signage, stuff like that.
we were worried they were going to try to palm all that off on the cities, because all those crossings are technically for the cities, and it's not something part of their business model or their obligation. So I think that was an accomplishment to get them to do that. But when it comes down to the extra little pieces here that for some reason they didn't do or didn't do adequately, they're going to stick us with the bill.
Do you want to follow up?
Yeah, so I mean, that brought up another whole thing. I get called on a regular basis about the quiet zones. We were told, a year ago that the quiet zones were happening, and they're not happening. So, where are we with that? That you may not be able to answer now, but where are we with that? And then going back to funding options and conversation that we're having here, what I was trying to get at is originally we were looking with the penny sales tax as possibly funding the 500,000. It was pushed to a more of a bottom stance on the penny sales tax. Is this something we want to consider pushing back up as, $500,000 penny sales tax option, get it done? And, the same thing with, we were talking about, car readers, license plate readers, additional cameras under the penny sales tax. But is this something that the dais wants to consider pushing back up as a penny sales tax?
I think the argument came back that would we want to use a penny sales tax for one time?
But it
continuous
sounds like it's
or
not a
continuous
one-time
maintenance
anymore.
things?
It sounds like it's something that we're gonna have to pay on a regular basis.
If I remember correctly, there were kind of two strains of thought here as regards this, right? Some people were saying, oh, this is a recurring obligation that we have, therefore we should pay it from recurring funds. And I think I'm in the same boat as Andy in that, look, the penny sales tax is hard money, it's restricted. And if we have the opportunity to take hard money and spend it on things we would spend our soft money on that's less restricted, we should probably do that, because now we have more soft money available to handle things in the general fund and to provide services that people can perceive, which I don't know of railroad crossings. So you know, if Andy wants to know where those of us who sit on the dais sit on this issue, I am certainly for taking money from the penny sales tax and funding this, not just this year, but 5 years from now when it comes up again, because I think what we should value is flexibility in the general fund.
Vice Mayor?
As far as the FEC money is concerned, I could go either way. As I said in the last meeting, I don't think we should use the penny sales tax for an expense that, had we not had that money available to us, we'd have to find the means to pay for it. However, I could go either way because obviously there's a couple things that I think each of us would like to see in the budget. I know there's a couple things that I wanted to speak to this evening I'd like to see in the budget. In order to see that happen, based on my conversation with the finance director and the city manager, we may have to strongly consider, moving that money or that expense to the penny sales tax. So, and while I've got the microphone, I just want to throw out the two items that I have, and I have a little bit of a prepared statement here, but I'm not going to read it because I know you all look bored.
Oh, feel free, please.
Do you want me to read it?
Please. If you've prepared the time, taken the time to prepare, please.
Oh, okay. Well, here we go. You all ready? All right. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming in tonight. I appreciate it. So I do want to offer some comment and overview of some of the great team successes that the city has experienced over the past few years. And I'd like to begin by thanking Commissioner Amoroso and Mayor Triello for crafting and for their dedication and hard work in crafting some consistent and solid policy direction to staff that has caused many people in the community and outside the community to begin to realize that the city is definitely turning the corner and headed in the right direction with a very, very bright future. I also want to tell you how proud I am to have been a part of that team and how thankful I am to have Commissioners Hardy and Robinson on this team going forward. And to the city manager and his team, I want to thank you all for implementing our initiatives over the past several years. And, I believe that your team, it seems almost every day, I sense a higher level of teamwork and a spirit of cooperation that's coupled with a real commitment to making Lake Worth the best it possibly can be. So with that said, and for those who've been around for a bit, I want to share with you that my primary focus for the last several years is to lead our city out of the economic ruins of the past decade. To that end, I've spoken for the need of the creation of a diversified tax base that shifts the grossly lopsided ad valorem tax burden currently shouldered by our residents and to more of an equal shared responsibility to our business community. Also, I've spoken of the need to identify and eliminate disincentives to investment to the city. And in my mind, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, has been our electric situation. And we've done a really good job of addressing that and reducing it. As you may know, that there was a time where we had some of the highest electric rates in the state. The costs that were so high that in some cases, some of our residents had to choose between paying their utility bill or buying food or medicine. And that's a choice that nobody should ever have to make. So thanks to the teamwork that the staff and this commission and the new commission seems to have been able to cobble together and do very well, I think we're starting to see unparalleled levels of new investment in terms of business. I think we're starting to see that tax burden that I spoke of earlier start to shift. Also, with our electric rates, as I mentioned a moment ago, we've worked very, very hard to get those down, and we're within striking distance of having cheaper electric than FP&L. So some of those people that I spoke of a moment ago that maybe had to make a tough choice in the past, will no longer have to make such a difficult choice. But there's more that the city has to do, obviously, and I think that we're up to the task. I think this commission is ready to do whatever it takes to move us to another level. So having said that, I only have two requests, only two, for this fiscal year. And I want to preface it by saying I really think that it is incumbent upon us to focus on doing everything possible to offer additional economic relief for our taxpayers while employing whatever new technology and tactics we can possibly muster to continue to reduce the crime levels in our city, throughout the city and for all of our residents. So I respectfully ask that we do two things. Number one, in terms of economic relief for our taxpayers, I propose a reduction of our property tax millage rate of at least 0.25 mils. And though that's a modest reduction, it does represent the first tax cut for our taxpayers in over a decade, as I recall. And number two, as we continue our efforts to reduce crime in our community, I propose the purchase of license plate readers, commonly known as LPRs, to be installed at literally every entry into the city. And I believe the use of this technology will go a long way towards determining criminals who come in from the outside of our city from entering Lake Worth, as well as cause those who currently live in the city and want to do harm to us to consider actually moving out. So, Madam Mayor and colleagues, I do believe these two initiatives are consistent with and speak directly to the ongoing efforts to make Lake Worth the best place in Palm Beach County to live. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, appreciate it. Vice Mayor Pro Tem?
I totally agree with the Vice Mayor. However, I'd like to see what those numbers look like. I have a hard time giving direction until I see exactly what those numbers look like and what it
We
does
can generate those
to
and
the
get them back
budget.
out to you.
But also keep in mind that one of the priorities on the penny sales tax was those license plate readers. That seemed to move up, and if I remember, the direction was that those smaller ticket items would be prioritized to the top of the list. So I think that was already on our penny sales tax list.
Commissioner Robinson?
I wonder what the conversation would be if we didn't have the penny sales tax to consider. So I would like to struggle with the creative use of that much money. It would be easy to spend found money on things that we know we have to spend on anyhow. So I hesitate to spend money that we could be using to create the future of Lake Worth on things that should be budgeted every year to maintain our city. Interesting request on a 0.25% reduction in taxes. Marketing is effective, and perception that Lake Worth is well managed is very important. And as tough as the budget is to balance, I would like to see the numbers and consider that. I think that's a part of the perception that Lake Worth is going well managed and spending its money wisely. And that's pretty much my thoughts.
While you have the floor, Commissioner Robinson, did you have anything that you would like to see in the budget?
Well, I had mentioned them to staff, and I'm going to be patient in seeing what the next year or so brings. And not to go into detail, because help me out here, there's a lot of moving parts. I'm concerned about the investment in our electric utilities, all the things that have been not funded, big ticket items, and I know management is working on them, and we do have a new director that's going to focus on that. But Commissioner Maxwell mentioned the reduction in taxes, and we don't see the numbers, but perception is important. I think the most important thing out of the budget is that we're managing it well.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hardy?
Commissioner Maxwell has been here a lot longer, certainly, than I have, and he's fought the good fight for that entire time, in many cases alone. And so I appreciate certainly the perspective that he brought to his two budget requests. At this time, while it is interesting, and I think Herman put it well there.
Commissioner Robinson?
excuse me, yes, Commissioner Robinson.
I'm good with her.
The 0.25 millage rate reduction is interesting, but I would first of all like to see exactly how things would shake out if people got an increased homestead exemption. And I don't quite know that we're where we want to be as far as our ability to provide services to our residents. And, I would like to see us grow a little more, especially in light of the fact that we could get our legs cut out from underneath us after 2018. Some of the priorities that I have for the budget, they're mostly public safety related, and then they're taking care of staff. One of the things that I learned going around with Doug Yoakum, our beach manager, and Lauren Bennett, our assistant director of leisure services, was that our lifeguards, for example, are severely underpaid relative to what they could be getting elsewhere. And I imagine that with the comp and class study that was recently completed, we have some, we have to make staff a priority. From the bottom to the top, we have to make sure that we're paying them competitive salaries. And so I think that should be at the top of our minds when we're looking at the budget. And then there are 3 items, 2 of which, you could have that conversation as far as the budget, or you can have it as far as the penny sales tax. The first is deputies. I don't know that we're where we want to be right now. I know just since I've been elected, I've had 4 shootings in my district alone, where people were shot, and I believe at least one of those cases was fatal. The other night there was a shooting and hate crime across the street from my district. I think that we should have a discussion about adding deputies, either to focus on the south end of the city to free up, deputies that are patrolling the entire city, or to focus on Dixie Highway, which is an area of concern for the vast majority of our city. So many of our residents live within a block or 2 of Dixie Highway, and so I think we should think about adding deputies to focus in some of those areas. The other 2 we've discussed: license plate readers. That's potentially a penny sales tax discussion, and I think it would be best to use penny sales tax money to buy those, or it could be a budget discussion. The other thing, and this is something that we've kind of bandied about in the past, but we haven't gone very far as actually investigating it, which is ShotSpotter. What Captain Bear said before Operation Perfect Storm was that basically in one intersection of the city there were 82 shootings in a single year, and that the majority of these shootings were, they were picking up casings, and they were rifle caliber casings, right? And thankfully, throughout most of those, no one was actually shot. But the idea that people are going around using guns in our community, it doesn't sit well with me. So if we can have a tool that lets us know where and when these gunshots are occurring every single time, we'd probably learn that, first of all, more shootings are happening in our community than what's being reported. Especially if you live in an area where there are lots of shootings, you're not reporting every single one of them. And then the other thing is we can start to track some of these casings and figure out who's doing what and drive some of these folks out of the community. And I think with the technologies that we're adopting, with the cameras, with the license plate readers, having ShotSpotter to work synergistically with those things, I think could be a tool in PBSO's toolbox. And, they use it in Belgrade, they use it in Riviera Beach, they use it in the city of Miami, Chicago. I would like to see us have that discussion and figure out if that's the way that we want. We can pay it on a recurring basis out of the budget, or we can pay for it as a capital expense with the penny sales tax. But I would like to see us have that discussion in public, because I think it's important that we do whatever we can to get a handle on gun violence in Lake Worth. So those are my 4 requests for this year.
I just wanted to say that I think that, for recurring expenses to be left in the budget process really is important. We have so many things that we've mentioned now for the penny sales tax. I don't know about the CSX, the FEC. We've had that. How many times have we done that in the 6 years I've been there? How many times have we had to up?
Every year.
Every year.
It's an annual expense.
It's an annual, that's what I thought.
We budget for it every single year. It's just this particular year,
They hit us bigger than.
we got hit a lot more.
Now,
than
did we spend
typically
those dollars in previous budgets? Did we have to do it last year and the year before? Have we always done the projects?
Yeah, it's usually 2 a year. We always budget at least $200,000 for it. Some years it might come in and it's only one crossing, but that's only happened once in the 6 years I've been here.
Okay.
It just so happens this particular year we're getting hit with 4 at once.
Okay, and where, Jamie, while you're up, where is our maintenance budget again for this year?
For the FEC,
No, for
Oh,
our
for-
total maintenance budget for potholes and fixing things outside of the road bond project. I couldn't find it in here.
Miss Finance Director, do you have the latest for the road improvement fund?
Streets.
31 and 52. Is that correct? Yeah, under general fund?
I'm not getting figures. That's what I said.
So she just gave me the wave off.
Totally.
It does exist.
Street maintenance.
I'm looking for that.
I'm not sure what we ended up with.
This is 200,000 and 500,000.
I,
That's when I get an answer.
well,
Mayor, I don't have the specific number, but I think in the current year's budget is approximately 200,000. But I will get the exact figure for you.
Okay, because that was my big thing in reference to the maintenance budget. We've said that this maintenance budget has to be a realistic maintenance budget for moving forward. I know we're doing projects on the road bond projects, but we can't, I mean, when I came here in 2011, it was 250,000, which wasn't even close because that was
That's what it
paying for
says.
200,000 of the lights, and then it was supposed to be 500, then it went up to 500,000, and then it was supposed, then I thought it went up to 1.5 million, but I'm seeing 500,000 here.
Madam Mayor?
That's, let me have staff, please.
The way we approach the maintenance program in light of the commitment to fix the roads and take the worst roads and bring them up, using the micropaver program, Jamie has put us on a 5-year to get us to the 1.5 a year we need in year 5 or 4. I'm trying to
Year
remember.
5.
Year 5. So that's where our target is. In this current year, we're at 500,000 is what I'm reading in the budget. Okay, I'm getting a yes, up from 200 this year.
So what I'm.
So we're going up to 1.5 in year 5.
Okay, so to just move back here. What is the cost, now that we've redone the lights, because that was an expense, we always heard every budget cycle that the lights cost us
It's
$300,000.
It's
of the
$384,000 to run the lights.
Right, and now what were they last year?
$384,000.
Now, don't we have LED lights and aren't we more cost effective and aren't we more
Understand that how performance contracting works
paying by the
is
savings?
the savings that you realized pays for the equipment capital investment. So you get all new equipment that's efficient and it performs better, it's maintained well, blah, 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 but it costs basically the same.
Okay, but I'm just, what I'm getting at is that my concern or my request, let me have this conversation like the rest of you all did, is that we said we were gonna have more money in the maintenance budget, so we know 300,000 of that money is going to pay for the lights. So what is the remaining
No,
dollar
no.
amount for?
That's part and separate from the 500,000. The total maintenance budget of everything, including the manpower and equipment, is almost $1.7 million. When you add that 384, the 500,000, and all the other items related to the operation.
Operations and
Is
salaries.
this year the first time that it's separated out? Because in the past, whenever we've had the $500,000 compensation, it's always been coming out of that 500,000 number.
No, it's always
Every-
been separate because you have the actual maintenance budget that comes out of the streets.
Can any vice mayor or vice mayor pro tem tell me I'm not crazy that we've had that
It's,
conversation
it's,
before?
the conversation's been all over the place and there's been a lot of
We have,
misunderstanding.
but I don't
of it.
know that we asked the question like that before.
Madam Mayor,
Okay, vice mayor.
I think I can speak to that. I think that the conversations we've had in the past that spoke to the lights being, taken away from the streets budget has been centered around the gas tax that we get from shared revenues. That the money we get for the gas tax historically has been used for the road maintenance, but a large portion of that has been used to pay the electricity for the light poles.
Okay. Well, if
That's
I-
correct.
So let me get back, thank you for clarifying, Vice Mayor. So getting back to that, based on the projects that we're doing through capital projects, or the projects that we're doing through road bond projects, what about all the roads that are not being touched by any of those projects? We have $500,000 to maintain them through a year, and is that reasonable?
Well, that's why we're systematically stepping up our maintenance budget each year, but as the vice mayor just mentioned,
So the
Let me be
question-
more direct.
I
The
just
answer
want
is
to
no, it won't do the vast majority because the whole city, in effect, the ones that aren't being done as part of the road program, it's voluminous the amount of work that probably needs to happen. So we're methodically trying to catch up to get to that point.
Okay, I bring this
Yeah.
back just because of the last thing that I mentioned in our previous conversation about the penny sales tax, was that everyone should feel the love throughout the city when we were looking at infrastructure and maintenance and getting some of the paving done or sidewalks done or traffic calming on some of the streets that were not necessarily a part of that original project. I'm bringing this out and making a point of it, not to say bad
Sure.
job or what'd you do that for, but to say this is the reality of what the situation is. And this $500,000 is not gonna solve all the problems. It's gonna fill a bunch of potholes and put in a couple of traffic situations where,
We're doing the best we've ever done, and but is it hitting all the things that need to be done? No, the answer is clearly no.
well, that leads me to the second part of my comment, which is about the millage rate. I would love more than anything to lower the millage rate. I'm just concerned with this conversation and being the fact that we were what, $1.6 million over budget in our last budget meeting, Marie? Was it 1.6?
Yes, ma'am.
1.6.
So we still have to, I mean, this is a process. Again, remember, folks,
Mm-hmm.
this is a moving object. This is a moving process, and we can take and move and do to get to a balanced budget. Ironically, municipalities are forced to balance their budget. Go figure. We don't do that on the higher levels of government, but we are. So, I mean, I know it's moving or whatever, but with that gap in the budget and knowing the reality of where the love is going to be spread when it comes to road projects in the next few years, and then also having the conversation about the petty sales tax, I need to see those numbers too, because like I said, in all honesty, nothing would make me happier, especially after the residents and community and business community and owners in this city stepped up for that road bond and did that. I mean, nothing would make me happier than to be able to lower the taxes on the other end. But it's of concern to me until I see the numbers, because we're so close. We're like, when you mentioned earlier too, Commissioner Hardy, we're so on that level and we don't know what the market's gonna do, property values are gonna do next year. We're sort of at that high point right now, and I'm always uber conservative when it comes to money. So I need to see those numbers to have a future conversation, but am I in support of it, Vice Mayor? You bet your Bippy. How's that for official? Is Bippy an official word? I don't know.
Bippy is-
It is now.
It is now. Commissioner Amoroso.
And Mayor, I agree with you, but I want to remind everyone that every single one of these funds are borrowing from fund balance. So, yes, our job is to balance, but and again, I support it and I want to look at the numbers, but every single one of these funds are borrowing from fund balance in order to balance this budget.
Commissioner Robinson?
I'm concerned about the conversation about finishing the roads. And the bond is allowing us to get to a 1 million in maintenance. And that's always going to be in the budget. Is that correct?
the maintenance dollars?
Yes.
That's correct, and those are three separate funds. You have the gas tax, you have the road improvement fund, then you have the actual maintenance budget.
And the maintenance budget is always going to be a part of the budget.
That is
And-
always part of the streets
And there's
budget.
always going to be roads that need to be done. I really am concerned about the recognizing that the $40 million bond is part of the maintenance, or ongoing maintenance. Is that, we understand that part of that $40 million is including maintenance. And if we're going to talk about the penny sales tax doing maintenance, the roads are never going to be done. And I would really be disappointed to take, it's going to be easy to spend on roads that are always going to be with us. If we don't use the penny sales tax to be futuristic in energy and recreation and marketing our city for that purpose, I would hate to see us just take, it's not very creative to take found money, inherited money, however you want to call it, and do what we should have been doing before. I really don't like the conversation of fixing all the roads. They're never going to be fixed, and somebody's not going to be happy with not getting their road done. I just want to keep the penny sales tax separate from understanding that that's going to be hard to spend it wisely. It isn't very hard to dump it into something that we're working hard. We've passed this, the $40 million bond includes maintenance. It's an ongoing budget item. I just want to emphasize that to me, it's a separate item.
All right, point of clarification, Commissioner Robinson, there is no maintenance in the $40 million is complete rebuilds of the roads and the infrastructure and the underground, correct?
Well, you have projects that are complete rebuilds, which include the underground utilities. Then you also have projects which are just fill and resurface, or what we call push button projects.
Right.
Which are, you're basically not doing anything underground. It's just all asphalt, curbing, sidewalk.
Right, it's not
Which-
maintenance.
That's what he's referring to as maintenance.
Oh, okay.
Well-
Well, that's not what we were talking about for, I was using I was using a reference point to my further comments, Commissioner Robinson, not as just regular generic maintenance. No, that should be covered by a regular budget, for clarification.
And in the future, when we actually have enough to maintain what we should be maintaining, out of that maintenance budget, we would be doing mill and resurface projects as part of that.
Just to further
There's some
clarify,
confusion here. This
just to
conversation's
further
going on.
clarify, the roads basically that we're doing are the worst roads, and their ratings are such that we're having to spend a lot of money to bring them back up to 100. When you do that, your maintenance budget is affected because you've rebooted the road. Therefore, if you run it through the micropaver computer system, instead of having a roads that are down here that you have to spend a lot of money just to keep operating, you're rebooting them, they're easier to maintain, and your maintenance budget is affected. And I think that might be what you're trying to say, it affects the budget. It's not that we're doing just maintenance,
Gotcha.
Well,
light stuff.
It affects the maintenance budget.
It affects it because you're rebooting the road to 100.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Hardy?
Yes. I'd like to talk about the way in which rebooting the road affects the maintenance budget. I think those things are connected, and then we can get to options that we have for that. Richard Hasco he's one of our engineers. He gave us, at least he gave me a document that kind of outlined the relationship between investment in the roads now and road maintenance budgets going forward, right? So basically, a road that's at 100 on the PCI, right, in the shortest term costs you I wanted to ask Jamie this question, so I'll wait.
Sorry.
A road that's at 100 beyond the PCI, and the shortest term costs you very little to maintain, right?
That's correct.
Because there's nothing, there's nothing broken, there's nothing to bring back up.
It's a brand new roadway.
Right, okay. And so the neighborhood road program, we're doing about a third of the city's roads, right?
Correct.
So they're going from 60 and below to 100, right? So going forward, that gets out of our maintenance backlog, and it's totally off of our responsibility list as far as maintenance in the short term goes, correct?
That's correct.
So this neighborhood road program is actually going to save us money on maintenance immediately. Like as the roads get done, these are roads that we no longer have to budget to maintain in the short term.
In the short term, that is correct.
Right.
With the point being that as you move into the future, we obviously would not
There's a
let
curve.
them erode to the point where they're beyond repair, and you can't just mill resurface or do some kind of surface treatment.
Right.
You would have to then go and do a complete redo and rip everything out.
Exactly, which is how we got into this problem.
Correct.
Okay. Now, this is an important relationship to understand because I understand that when we get one-time pots of money like the penny sales tax, right, we want to do something spectacular with it. At the same time, boring is good. The most reliable people I know are like the most boring people that I know. They like show up on time, they complete their homework. Like my students, it's the boring students that complete their homework on time and get A's and all that. Right. So,
We used to call them nerds.
well, sure. You can't say that in 2017.
can't?
That's
another word you can't say.
That's a major behavioral issue. That's bullying, calling somebody a nerd. But basically, I would like to advocate for us to be boring with this penny sales tax because basically what it does is it takes maintenance out of our backlog, right? Lowers our maintenance budget, gets projects out of the way that we're going to have to do, right? It solves future problems for us by taking hard money and spending it on roads that were not covered by the penny sales tax, but that by virtue of their PCI, right, indicate that they need work done within the next 3 to 5 to 6 years or so, right? That's an important point. And in addition to that, you have this thing where, well, gosh, it frees up soft money for you, right? So like every dollar that we sink into roads that didn't make the cut for the penny sales tax, if that's saving us money on the maintenance side, then that's money available for us to do other interesting things with. And I understand we've gone a long way getting where we are right now with this general fund as far as being able to provide a level of services. But if I were to ask the four others of you, right, whether you feel that we're where we need to be as far as service level and things that we could fund out of the general fund, I don't think I'd get a single hand, right? And so if we have the opportunity to free up money in this really important fund by investing in things that allow us to do that, then why shouldn't we do that?
Vice Mayor?
Before I speak, Madam Mayor, I want to advise you that I'm going to be paraphrasing what I've just heard from Commissioners Robinson and Hardy, but I'm going to do it with a little bit of a historical twist. And if I'm wrong, I want staff to help me out here.
Are you the storyteller?
I'm telling a story.
Okay.
You remember that back before we had the opportunity to go out for the first bond referendum, we made a commitment to increasing the maintenance fund for roads because it was such a bad situation that we had no other choice but to commit large sums of money, a humongous, relatively speaking, sums of money to that cause. That's number one. Number two, it is my understanding there is some maintenance money in the bond referendum for maintenance. That was part of the bond covenants, as I recall. Can somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong? There had to been some sort of a plan in there to maintain the roads that we just built.
Well, I want to make sure we're using the right terminology. When you're saying maintenance in terms of the bond program, typically a mill and resurface treatment on a roadway would constitute a maintenance.
Okay, well then you call it tomato, I'll call it tomato, but the point is that money for a mill and resurface, had the bond not been available to us, would have been coming out of our maintenance pot that we were trying to fund.
Yeah, we would not have been able to do much each year
Exactly.
because we didn't have a lot.
That said, again, we committed to, replenishing this fund and really bolstering this fund prior to the bond referendum, number one, and its ultimate passage in the second go-round. And to, I think Commissioner Omari's point, and I wholeheartedly agree, I believe that a significant portion of the sales tax should be committed to roads. Because we came up a little bit short on the $63 million initial ask, okay, which we knew at the time was really cutting it close of what we really needed at the time. Okay, we really needed more than $63 million if we were, honest with ourselves. And I think that by addressing that need, whatever that PCI cutoff is now, and doing some additional roads with the penny sales tax, we also free up more maintenance money that we would have needed in the future, which causes us to have less pressure on ourselves going forward to get that fund up to $1.5 million or whatever our initial commitment was. So my point is, let's just put everything in proper perspective and historical context, and make sure we are all clear on, where the money is and where, where it's allocated and how it's best spent for, the long term.
And I thought that's what I said a long time ago.
Well, I warned you. So that means the three of us are in agreement at least.
Yes.
Okay.
We are at this point. Okay, so that was the conversation. What was the other item I had? I think I had wrapped up mine and you went back to you. Any other questions?
I actually have a question for Jamie.
Commissioner Hardy?
In that report, which it was the original 2014 report that was updated in 2016. It basically said that without the road bond, it'd take us like 20 years of dedicating $1.5 million to road maintenance to clear our backlog, right? And so I would like for you to come back to the commission, with the city manager's approval, to come back, to the commission and let us know what our maintenance budget would be to, first of all, what our backlog would be after, we're done with the neighborhood road programs, and what it would take for us in terms of an annual maintenance allocation to clear that backlog. And in addition to that scenario one, scenario two is what our backlog would be after both the neighborhood road program and after we took care of every road between 61 and 69. There's a list of these roads. What our, so what our backlog would be in that scenario and what our maintenance would have to be to clear that backlog going forward. I think that would make this discussion a lot easier.
It was 1.5 million. The number 1.5 million comes from previous discussions that we had.
To do the 60 and below, correct.
It was 1.5
Well,
million.
it was 1.5 on an annual maintenance.
But we don't have the differential on the 61 to 69. That's something else that he would have to run.
Yeah, because when we, keep in mind when we did the bond program, we obviously coordinated everything with water and sewer. So we went off of their 5-year capital improvement program because we obviously don't want to pave any roadways. They're going to have to come and rip up in a year or two. Moving forward from that 61 up to 70, we would have to, and I don't know if they've gone that far yet, like year 6 and further, look into what they have coming up in the next 5 years after that as well, because we would not want to address any of those roadways from 61 to 70 that also are going to get some type of underground utilities as well.
Follow it.
Yes, that's an important thing to coordinate. I don't know if the best way to do it is to model it as if we're taking care of the roads 61 to 69 or 61 to 70 5 years from now, because 5 years from now, they're not going to be at 61 to 70. They're going to be in the 40s and 50s. So right now, they're cheap to fix relatively, and in the future, they'll be more expensive.
Well, that was just speaking strictly from an underground utility standpoint, because if we have water, sewer, anything under those roadways that is going to have to be addressed in the next few years, even though that few years might fall outside of that 5-year bond window, we still would not want to pave or do anything on that roadway without addressing those underground utilities.
Okay,
Policy
I see what you're saying.
Policy direction from the commission has consistently been do it once, do it right.
Commissioner Robinson?
We're good with 500,000 for maintenance now in the budget. We're not talking about the penny sales tax in this budget.
No, and
So-
I was actually saying, my point was that I don't think we're good with $500,000 in the maintenance budget.
Well,
Even
next
though
year it's
we're
gonna be
building-
more, and up to $1.5 million.
Right.
And so,
And I'm not talking about the penny sales tax.
we haven't had, everything is gonna cost more if we, everything is gonna cost more in the future. And we haven't had a conversation about spending the penny sales tax, and that's not tonight's agenda. So I'm good with the budget. I'm concerned about the electric investment, and I'm also concerned about the conversation on the road investment out of the future for Lake Worth. But are we going to? How much conversation are we going to have on the penny sales tax tonight? Is my question.
Oh, we're only gonna talk about the penny sales tax as it relates to somebody who was mentioning whether or not we should put it into our current budget, or would it be financed elsewhere? That's the only place where it came into conversation. And that was why it was opened up to the whole commission, because it was being eyed as an item that would either go into the,
Well, to that point, I'm not clear whether there's enough direction here for us
there isn't,
to,
based on the
for the
conversation.
500,000 FEC, whether or not you guys want to have that discussion on the sales tax side and take it out of this budget discussion, which would obviously greatly improve our budget outlook in the general fund, or to direct us to leave it in there.
In my perfect world, I would have to say, no, leave it in the budget, because again, it's a recurring expense that we have to, we have to
Okay.
learn to play within our means. We're not always gonna have the sales tax. And if we can't learn to budget for what we need on a recurring basis, that shouldn't be a habit that we get into. That's my personal belief.
Amen.
Commissioner Robinson, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hardy.
So that's two.
I think the sales tax is a part of our means. You know, we're thinking about spending according to our means. I think our means includes the penny sales tax, and I think that perhaps a middle ground might be, okay, whatever we normally spend on the railroad, whether it's $200,000, okay, spend that out of the general fund. Anything above that for this year, we could use with these one-time funds. I think that'd be a very nice middle path to,
Okay, Vice Mayor.
I'm gonna try to wing this real quick. Well, no, listen up. I really believe, like I said, my initial comment was, as you said, Madam Mayor, to not use the penny sales tax for the FEC. But when I think about it a little bit further, and the opportunity to help us with this current budget, look at it this way. If we were growing our budget because we're adding staff and services, then I'd say we're making a big mistake, because we're setting ourselves up for failure. But because our property values continue to rise, and they will probably continue to rise, I firmly believe that when the crash hit, we really got whacked harder than most other cities. Okay, so I think there's a lot of room for opportunity, and I feel very confident and comfortable in telling you that Lake Worth is the place that people are going to want to come and invest, and they are coming right now as we speak. I feel very confident. I don't think the next 1 or 2 years is something we need to be concerned about in terms of property values not continuing to rise. I mean, there may be a little bit of a smoothing effect in the market, but I don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of years. So, like I said, we're not growing the budget with overhead, per se. We're growing the budget is growing primarily because of uncontrollable expenses, okay? And if we can manage those expenses, I think it's safe enough for us to pull that money out of the budget and move it over for the penny sales tax.
My only concern with that is then when do you stop? I mean, if we're looking at taking this penny sales tax, again, this is a conversation we shouldn't be having because we're not talking about penny sales tax. But if you're saying that, then why wouldn't we spend it on resolving the debt at the beach and correcting the beach and making investments in the beach and the pool and all of those things? If you're going to take it all, if you're going to say, well, we have to make it to improve something that we weren't used to paying for, then why wouldn't we use it for completely failed business models that need to be reconciled? Why wouldn't we use it towards that? Again, that's something that we'd have to learn how to budget on our own, but we'd have to take money to do. I don't understand the thinking of. I just worry because, again, I just like to live within my means, and that's been a big problem with some of our funds not being able to operate and live within our means. And I don't want to step us out of that category. Commissioner.
I agree with Commissioner Hardy and Vice Mayor that. And talking to other cities too, what they're doing is the penny sales tax, and the reason we're talking about it is because we're talking about what's going in and out of the budget. Other cities, they're looking at the penny sales tax is very structured in what you can do with it. So if you spend it on this, it frees up other funds within your general fund. So most cities are looking at that, and I think Commissioner Hardy made mention to it earlier. So, I think we have gone through and we kind of have direction. I support, you know, the $500,000 out of the penny sales tax.
Vice Mayor?
As I promise this is the last time I speak, if we all promise this is our last time that we're going to speak tonight. To your question about if we're going to do the FEC in this manner, why wouldn't we address the beach in a similar manner? I would say that we have, within our means and our control, the opportunity to fix the beach. That's something that we can control. The FEC is something we can't control, and it's a known infrastructure cost that we know is going to recur. We can fix the beach, hopefully. Now, we wouldn't be able to take this penny sales tax money and just backfill a deficit. But who knows? Maybe if this study comes back, what are we going to do up there? Maybe we might have to use some of that money as seed money to get something going up on the beach. But we ultimately have control over what happens on the beach. We don't have any control with this infrastructure cost that's being thrown at us from the FEC.
Commissioner Hardy?
You know, the Mega Millions and the Powerball, they're both up above $300 million right now. Don't any of you guys worry about playing, because I'm going to win it all on Wednesday night.
And you're gonna fix all these things for us?
I'll see if I can do it from a beach in the South Pacific.
We will name it after you.
Yeah, how do you feel about naming rights?
But you know, the way, so you know, I'm a teacher, right? And you know, if I were to win the Powerball, right, I understand that there's a measure of frugality and intelligence with which I use the money that I come into. But if I'm thinking about living within my means, I have to consider the fact that, gosh, I just won the Powerball. That too consists of my means. And so with this penny sales tax money, I totally agree with you that we shouldn't spend it willy-nilly. But where we have the opportunity to create additional funding flexibility for ourselves by taking hard money and spending it on things that we were spending soft money on, I think we should consider that. And especially given, you know, the railroad crossings, like, that is infrastructure. And, you know, we don't have to spend all 500. I'm kind of agnostic as to whether we take all $500,000, you know, and you know, go from the penny sales tax with it, or whether we do the $200 out of the budget and take the additional $288,000 and go there, because that would give us a bright line as far as when do we stop. Well, you know, we've told ourselves, well, anything above X we'll take care of, and hopefully in the future it will be back to normal. I think that's a reasonable way to think about it. But the penny sales tax is an opportunity for us. And, you know.
Commissioner Robinson?
I just, convinced that we have to spend 500 on, you know, how did it go from 200 to 500? Can we, I don't want to say negotiate, but can we talk to them and talk about our schedule of what, you know, what we have to do? Because we did 200 a year was fine for everybody. And now they just jumped it to 5. So I'm not convinced that that we have to do it this year in their terms. I mean, if we, you know, and then one other, and that's it for me too. 7:30, if we're good at 7:30. I'm concerned about the fishing pier, and that's a South Water Management directive, and you know, we're going to take $150,000 out of our budget to do that. I'd like to talk to them about working with us. So those two things, I would like.
You are on record for both of those things.
Yes, but I'd like to talk to the two people that are telling us we have to spend it, have way more money than we do. And I'd like to give them a second chance to help us.
Understood, Commissioner Emerson.
Just real quick for clarity. So in the budget this year, you have only budgeted $150,000, correct? Did I hear you right? In the past, we budgeted $200,000. This year, we only budgeted $150,000.
That's correct.
Okay, because we keep going to the 200 or the 500. In the budget this year, there is only 150.
There was 150 budgeted for
Okay.
the FEC crossing. That's
And what
correct.
is needed, it is?
The
500.
500.
But we are staff is talking to FEC about, how this became 500,000. Does it all have to be done at one time? They're still having those conversations.
And as a point of reference too, we worked on that in the past, remember
Yeah.
Jamie, we got them to help with some of it.
Madam Mayor, if I could, I know Jamie and Felipe, as soon as we got that, the calls started happening. I don't know if y'all have been successful in getting through to anyone, but for those of you who've been on the commission a long time and you newbies, there's a saying basically in the state of Florida, if you work with any entity that has an acronym that begins with F, FEC is on
Point
that
of
list.
order.
And has
Show
an
some
office in
respect.
Tallahassee, then we're really in trouble.
If you work with any, you have to be very careful. So that's just a,
Show some respect, city manager.
no, that's a little bit
Please,
of
oh,
a
please.
school of hard knocks.
And all right, I'll tie I'm gonna wrap this all up.
Yes.
Good.
Go ahead.
Look at it over there. I wanna sum this all up if I can. Let me take a shot at it. Let me take a crack at it. He's not even looking at me.
He's not even
I
listening.
was pulling the vice mayor on it.
You need to say, in my humble opinion.
In my humble opinion, no, I was playing devil's advocate on both sides because it's really good the conversation that we're having tonight about it. I really like it all. I'm very proud of all of you, and I think we've got a lot of good stuff coming. I bring up some of these things, and I play devil's advocate just to sort of bring out the different sides of what it means and how it's going to affect the other funds and the other projects, and bring up some of those projects specifically because they're either in need of attention or contentious or whatever they may be, but they need to be addressed. So I think it was a really good conversation tonight. I hope it gave some clarity to staff, and I do want to thank you all very much. We've still got a ways to go. Biggest concern, to wrap it up here, is that how are we going to bridge that gap, that hole that we have in there? I think there's some willingness to move on some of that, or negotiate down some of that. Either way, that's not in the budget. Only 150 is in the budget, so we've got to look at that gap. What do when we come to this process usually in August? We're a little closer to bridging the gap, so we're going to have to sharpen our pencils and figure it out. Did we give you what you need? Is there anything else you need from us right now other than more places? Because I think asking for me, I can't personally feel comfortable asking for anything additional. I mean, I would definitely like to see what that millage looks like, because like I mentioned, and I think all of us up here, we would love to be able to do that. I just don't know if this is the year that, being this late into the budget cycle and not having the ability to bridge that gap yet concerns me. So that would be my only question on that. But would I like to? Yeah, like yesterday. All right, gang. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion. So
Just a point of privilege. As we meet individually with you, we'll be generating the numbers and the information you requested. And this will happen at our regular meeting, but since it's his first meeting officially with the city, Ed Liberty, our new electric utility director, is in the audience with the rest of the staff. I know the mayor's had a chance to meet him. He'll be making the rounds with each of you, and you'll get to see some more of them. But we'll introduce him at our commission meeting coming up. But it's good to have him in, and I'm glad everybody behaved. So
Be prepared for our next regular meeting.
thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I had a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Hardy. Do I have a second? Do you all want to stay here forever?
So moved.
There we go. All in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Mr. Robinson, I didn't hear from you. Did you yay? Okay. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.